Okay, so I want to keep this week's recap pretty short and to the point. This has been a really helpful week for actually like learning what is the problem that I need to be solving. So last week I spoke a lot about how I just wasn't showing up and managing my sales rep in the way that I needed to be managing him, and it was impacting the results that he was getting because I wasn't giving him the resources that he needs. Now there's a similar thing happening where I need to be partly setting up better systems for him to be using and then managing him to making sure that he is using those systems. So in terms of a bit of a recap for the week, we had our first deposit come through, our first close come through for the new closer, which is fantastic. It came through a lot later than I would have liked, and after I spent a lot more on ads than I would have liked. But we've got another couple this week as well, or we've got follow-ups coming this week, which I expect will close, and then his calendar's pretty busy coming into Monday. So I think he's got 2 calls tomorrow, and I think he's got about 6 calls on Monday, which is fucking awesome. So that brings me on to this week. I do a weekly reflection with a friend where we hop on, and I would highly encourage anyone who's watching this to do the same as well. Do this with an accountability partner where you hop on and you just like look through your numbers. Now, the first and most important thing is make sure you actually have numbers to look over, right? I mean, that's where you identify constraints. And I was speaking with him about this today. Something that we both tend to do is neglect like what is the real issue, because it's not always the nicest thing to like admit what the issue is constraining your business, because even just through like admitting it, you have to admit like a shortcoming in yourself for having let that problem arisen in the first place. And the fact that it exists points to a shortcoming in yourself. So it's not very comfortable to admit that you even have a problem in the first place. So highly, highly, highly recommend actually have someone who you meet up and you do this with, right? A friend of yours who is in the space. If you don't have friends, go and connect in communities. There are so many that you can get involved in, and it will do you wonders knowing people in the space. All of the most important things I've learned have come through connecting with people in the space. It will never do you any harm, provided you don't connect with like the wrong people. There are some people out there who will try and steal all your money and just be horrible people. But we just went through, we shared our numbers. So again, make sure you actually have your numbers and your data to look through. It's not the sexy stuff, but it's the really powerful stuff. It's actually tracking all of your numbers. So we just went through, we reflected on our numbers, and a big issue for me at the moment is my show rate on my B2B show rate. So my show rate this month so far is about 35%, which is awful. That is so bad. And there's a few things that can be. And my focus moving into this week is now on how I can actually fix my show rate, get more people showing up. Our cost per offer is about $530, which isn't terrible, right? Because if I want to get my sales rep up to a 30% offer to close rate at a $500 cost per offer, that's super scalable. So that's okay. But I still think there's a lot of work we can do to actually make that show rate better. So I'm going to walk you guys through a couple of the ideas that I have in place here. I'm just going to pull up my screen. I'm not sharing it on my screen, but I'm just going to read it out to you guys. So the first thing that I want to do is making sure that he's actually following the systems that I have in place. So we have it set up so that when a lead comes through and they book a call, straight away we want to send them a customized video call, video message over iMessage. So he pulls out his phone and he sends it. Basically saying, hey, like we saw you booked in the call, really excited to hop on and have a chat with you. You know, a couple of things just to prepare for the call. Go ahead, watch the pre-call video, So we send that over as a video. Obviously, we call these people up and we triage them as well. But I want to make sure that we're sending those videos as soon as possible. And then also the day before the call, the night before the call, it is going through and sending over a video again as well. Just saying a very similar thing of like, hey, super excited for our call tomorrow. Gone through, done a bit of a market research on your area. Excited to walk you through the findings that we have and again, to see if this can be a good fit to actually help you get more jobs coming in for your company. So I want to set up end of day forms and start of day forms to make sure that he is putting in the reps that he needs to be putting in terms of confirming these calls, in terms of how he's preparing for these calls, in terms of what his focus for each day is, and in terms of how consistently he is achieving and completing his focus items for each day. I also think putting a lot more emphasis on, this is the really unsexy stuff with show rates, which is so powerful though, but it's putting emphasis on getting people to actually confirm the call. And when I say confirm the call, I mean confirm it on their calendar. So on a Google Calendar, you can see when someone confirms a call or not. And interestingly enough, we've tracked some data on this. People who confirm the call, they show at about 80 to 85%, which is awesome. And it's the people who don't confirm the call on their calendar, they're the ones who end up no-showing. And that's where a lot of our problem is. So in the funnel, in the thank you page video, and then also in the follow-ups, the videos that we send over, and in the triage call, I want to start pushing that a lot more, of getting them to confirm the call and being very blunt and direct with how they can do it. We've got our thank you page videos, our breakout videos, which is a concept from Jeremy Haynes, which we're still testing that. It's still too early to say if that's going to be working or not. And then what else? There are a couple other things I was going to be looking at adding in. I mean, really, that's just going to be my focus this week, is getting more people to be showing up on calls. Because, again, like a $500 cost per offer is pretty scalable, particularly given our offers. We've got a 6K offer and a 10K offer. And the good thing is we're offering basically everyone who does get on a call. So that means the people who do show up are qualified. Now, there are extra things we can be adding in terms of making calls unconfirmed so we can double book and all that boring stuff. But I mean, the main thing is if we can get the show up rate even to 50%, that's almost doubling the number of calls we'll be taking with our current volume and our current cost per book demo. And our cost per offer based off of that should decrease pretty dramatically. You know, it's 530 at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if we could get that down to about 300, factoring in that we'd probably get a few more people who aren't qualified showing up as well. So, yeah, that's sort of my big focus for this week. And yeah, I think the main takeaway from me for this week is, firstly, it's amazing how much faster you get feedback from your team once you actually start managing them properly. So with my sales guy this week, I was reviewing every call that he did. And every time I was recording a Loom video, breaking down the call, going over it in depth, setting it against a scorecard that we have to actually grade how he's doing in different areas of the call and what his, focus points can be for future calls, reflecting on what he did well, feedback for improvement, and then his immediate action items, and then actually going through and grading him out of 10 on every single section of the call, and then different, soft skills on the call in terms of like building rapport, pre-handling objections, all of that sort of stuff. And like I was doing really in-depth breakdowns with him. These were, actually I was recording them on Loom, but they were like 2-hour breakdowns sometimes, going through the call super in-depth. And the awesome thing was I started investing this effort and time into him and helping him build up his skills. And he started making all the changes that I was telling him to make. Now, is he absolutely perfect and nailing it every single time? Now, no. But you can't expect that from a closer, particularly this early on. Like, a closer's skill will only ever rise to the level of either one of two things, right? Firstly, they have to be hungry and they actually have to like want to be closing deals. But then from there, they're going to be capped at the level of effort that you put into them up to a certain point, right? Once they're coached up, they understand the offer, they understand the process. Then it's just a case of like realigning them every now and then. If they start getting off process, if they start getting too big of an ego or whatever it may be, it's just pulling them back down to reality and putting them back on process. But initially, it's getting someone trained up on process. And in my case, like this is my first time I brought a closer on. And it has been a learning experience for sure. I've lost a lot of money on them. But yeah, I think this will be this week coming up where we collect some cash, which should be nice. So we're going to have 3K, which should be coming through from that deposit. And then I'm hoping that we'll get another 12K coming through in new cash from a couple of new clients from the follow-ups we have so far. Could easily get another one booked in, another close come in, which would be awesome. Right, at that stage it'd be 18K new cash. It'd be over 20K new cash. If we can get 3 perfs and then the 1 split pay, that'd be fucking awesome. That'd be a great week. But yeah, numbers wise, last week didn't look great in terms of actual progress and in terms of the data collected and the iterations we're able to make off of the back of that. It's been fantastic. So, this was a bit more of like a technical recap on the week. I want to try and distill it down to like one key lesson. What I would say is get someone in your corner who's going to hold you accountable. Most of the time, when it comes to growing, you know what you actually need to do. right? It's not often like a lack of knowledge that stops you from scaling. It's a lack of execution. And one of the easiest ways to increase your output and increase your rate of executing is by having someone who's calling you out on your bullshit. So every week, my friend and I, we meet, we hop on for an hour. We talk about what happened over that last week. We review the goals that we set for the week prior. If we didn't achieve those goals, then we have to pay each other $1,000. So there's like real accountability there of if we don't do what we say we're going to do, we pay each other $1,000. So we reflect on the previous goals that we set. We look over the current state of the business in terms of really trying to identify like what is the biggest bottleneck at the moment. The good thing is for both of us, it's a sales thing. If like we just don't have enough volume of new accounts and new clients coming on. So we go through, we look at the numbers in that, we figure out where is the actual bottlenecks and the leaks in our process. What is it that's holding us back from being as profitable as we'd like? In my case, it's a two-part problem, right? We are getting calls. There's definitely improvements that can be made with the lead quality for sure. But I think a big part of the problem for us is our show rate and our close rate. I mean, our close rate this month is, if we include the deposit, it's a little bit over 10%, which is awful. That's really bad. But the good thing is it can very easily jump up to 30% just through those follow-ups that we've got booked in. Now, there are going to be more calls coming through. I'm hopeful that we can close a few more of them. This could be a really big week. And I think this is going to be a very telling week because either I get to the end of this week and we've collected cash, which would be awesome, or we get to the end of this week, we haven't collected any cash and I just had to tell my closer, hey man, like no hard feelings, but this just isn't working. I can't afford to keep losing cash on this. Because there's a huge opportunity cost with this. Like I had a friend who, he brought on a closer at the same time actually. He got him 70 calls booked, 30 shows, about 27 of them were qualified and he pitched 27 of them. And he had 0 closes from 27 offers. And then, his name's Jim, by the way. I'd recommend you go and watch some of his content, Jim Foo Fast. And he did a video breaking down what his constraint is. He figured out it was the fact that his closer just is not closing. And he brainstormed how to fix it. He ended up getting rid of his closer. And then the very next day, when he's got back into sales himself, he closed a 15K PIF. So I don't really know what the point of that story is. But yeah, get someone in your corner who's like actually going to hold you accountable. And within that, it's also, they're going to call you out when you are playing too small and you're thinking too small. Like I had a conversation with my friend today. He said, so I've been friends with him for a while. At the start of this year, we hopped on, we planned what our goals was. He wants to do 100,000 Australian a month by the end of the year. And he didn't have his ads turned on and he hadn't turned them on all week. And I was having a conversation with him of like, hey man, like you say you want to hit $100,000 a month. You know you need to run ads to hit there. Why are you acting out of alignment with your goals? Right? One of two things have to change. It's either the goal that you have needs to change or the behaviors that you're making need to change. So either your behavior changes or your goal changes. Which one of those is going to change? Because if you keep behaving the way you are now, you are not going to hit your goal. So it's about choosing which one you want to sacrifice. So anyways, long way of saying that accountability is huge. Having people in your corner who can hold you accountable when you are playing small and you are thinking too small is massive. And it will be a huge help on shortening your feedback cycle. Because a lot of the time when you reflect, a lot of the time when you reflect on your own stuff, you don't actually be fully transparent with yourself. Because it takes a very deep level of self-understanding to be truly honest with yourself. And a lot of people don't have that. I don't fully have that. And that's just because, frankly, I haven't spent enough time reflecting myself. And that is part of the reason behind these videos is because I do want to be reflecting more. But it's also partly just because I want, my goal with these videos is to speak to where I was a few years ago, and for people who are where I was, I hope they can get some value out of this and it can help them grow faster. But yeah, look, I think we're getting one step closer to getting this up and running. And the good thing is, once we're profitable in the ads, once we're doing 4x, 5x ROAS, I mean, from there, I'm happy to dump in whatever it may be to get to 100K a month. I still want to hit it before the end of the year. But yeah, long story short, track your numbers, get someone to hold you accountable to where your constraint actually is, and coming up with solutions and executing those solutions to improve your constraint. It's as simple as that. I mean, so much of business is just like putting yourself through a constant feedback loop. Where you look at the numbers, you figure out what the constraint is, you implement a change to try and improve said numbers, you look at the results and the feedback from that change, and then you decide if it worked or not, right? If you saw it improve to a stage that you're happy, it's like, cool, we just keep doing this. I mean, this system's now running. If you saw it improve, but not to the level that you wanted to see it to, you go back to the drawing board. If you didn't see it improve, back to the drawing board. And it's just a constant iteration cycle. And the good thing is with a lot of this, particularly like the acquisition side of things, I mean, once you have a system that's working, within reason, you're pretty set. Once you've got a system where you put $1 and you get $4 or $5 back out, I mean, you've done most of the heavy lifting at that stage. You've got an offer that is validated and attractive to the market, and offers take a long time to fatigue. They do fatigue, right? If they fatigue if everyone starts doing the exact same offer. That's where you just need to frame yourself as a little bit different. But at this point, I'm waffling. Bye.